What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel, and today I want to emphasize something which often is pretty neglected by all health gurus and the likes. So something which is very important to me because I struggle with, and I've been struggling with throughout all my life, I would say, and it's sleep. Why is sleep so important? There's many reasons for that. Have you ever noticed that whenever you don't sleep, the day after, you are basically dead? You can't focus, you can't concentrate, you can't really live your life in the best way possible. At least the experts say that we need 7 to 8 hours at least, and it's true. I mean, whenever I get to sleep 7 hours, and it's a miracle, I function in a way that it's not even comparable with the other days when I don't sleep. If I sleep 5 hours, sometimes less than 5 hours, because I would say I'm a light sleeper, so I wake up at every single given noise, and that's not funny. I know I was smiling, but that's not funny, because first of all, and it's a matter of fact, the less we sleep, the less we are going to live. Do we want to live forever? No, we don't want to live forever, but we want to have that kind of quality of life, which is healthy, and the longer we live, the more we're going to appreciate many things and see new generations, appreciate our kids, our offsprings in general, and our grandkids, if we're going to have any, and experience how the world is going to be changing in decades from now. The reason why I'm saying that is that obviously I'm a personal trainer, and I often see, as I said at the beginning, that many personal trainers really neglect this aspect of the night. And whenever I see my clients, I first ask, okay, what's your sleep routine? Do you sleep enough time? 6, 7 hours, 8 hours? Is your sleep interrupted? Do you drink before you go to sleep? Do you have coffee before? You know, all these questions related to sleep, which I believe they're very important. During the sleep, we fast as well. Our bodies need to not eat for a long period of time, where our cells are going to be regenerating. Then, if we are intermittent fasters, for example, and intermittent fasting is something that many people are talking about, and there's lots of benefits, and I'm not the one who is going to advocate which one are the benefits, because I'm not an intermittent faster, because sometimes I eat breakfast, sometimes I skip the breakfast. I try to maximize as much food as possible whenever I've got time to eat, and I'm a very busy person, but that doesn't mean that I'm an intermittent faster, because sometimes I skip my routine, so I eat a little bit late at night. It used to happen much more often, but it doesn't really happen very often anymore. With that said, intermittent fasting is good, but sleeping is even much more important than anything else. So I was going to say that during sleeping, we have those 7 hours, 8 hours where we fast. We don't eat, because obviously I know very few people who are able to eat during night when they are sleeping. However, there's many things that we can do in order to maximize our sleep if we are people like me, for example, who really struggle with sleeping. But obviously, doing researches and having a look, listening to podcasts, and reading peer-reviewed articles, I've come to many conclusions, which or many of them are obvious, and are the ones that if I want to live a better life, I definitely have to have those non-negotiable 8 hours of sleep. This is what I need to have, and I'm trying to do my best in order to achieve that. So what I'm trying to not do is to not drink any caffeine after 2 o'clock, and there's many reasons of that. So caffeine increases dopamine. Dopamine is that hormone that we normally have in the morning, which is related to motivation. And you want to feel motivated in the morning, you want to be more focused in the morning, you don't want to be drinking too much caffeine during the afternoon, where all you need is a bit of more hormone, which is the one that releases relaxation, and is serotonin. But obviously I'm not a neurologist, I'm not an expert in this field, but reading and having a bit of an understanding of how hormones and different chemicals in our bodies work, then just telling you something which is quite simple, but obviously is much more complex when an expert is explaining it and he's using all those words which I'm aware of, but I'm not going to use now, because we need to understand each other. Okay, so in the morning, whenever we wake up, something called cortisol is released in our body, and it's that kind of chemical which we need in order to feel alert. Then there's another chemical called norepinephrine, and that's something which works in tandem with this cortisol and makes us feel alert, motivated, and ready to tackle the day. Obviously, if we help ourselves with a bit of caffeine, then the caffeine will increase the dopamine, which is that kind of chemical in our brain which is related to motivation, and all these compounds put together will create the waking self, which is going to tackle the day. For many people it means going for a run, many people means going to work, focusing on important tasks, reading or exercising. All these things are driven by all these chemicals I've described earlier. However, if we want to have a nice sleep, all these chemicals have to be as less as possible during the night. Therefore, the caffeine is something that's going to increase the alertness. Therefore, if we have caffeine, let's say at 7 o'clock, well, chances are that, especially if you are light sleepers, chances are that our sleep pattern in that night will be very poor. Light is also another component. How much light are we surrounded by? Is it a natural light, sun exposure, or it's artificial light? Is it too bright? Well, these also have so much influence on our sleep patterns. Remember, before we go to sleep, especially 2 or 3 hours before we go to sleep, we need to dim all those lights. And if we can do that since early in the afternoon, especially if we are in indoors environments, obviously we need to dim our lights as much as possible if we want to have a good quality night's sleep. As I said, caffeine is very important to lessen the amount of caffeine we ingest during the afternoon. Music, for example. So if you're some of those people like me who love heavy metal, for example, and I'm a real true fan of heavy metal. I made a whole episode about heavy metal, talking about the history, about my favorite bands. And although before I used to listen to heavy metal throughout the whole day, whereas now I'm trying to minimize the volume of the loudness and this type of music I'm listening during the evening before I go to sleep. because what that happens is the louder is the music and the more exciting it is, the more it excites you. Therefore, it compromises your neural patterns to set everything up for a good night's sleep. Therefore, from heavy metal, which I now tend to listen the early hours in the day or early hours in the afternoon, I switch to either classical music or something which is quite mellow, which helps me relax. Obviously, sometimes when I have time, I improves your quality of life in general, especially when it comes to focus, concentration, and be more productive in life. Okay, so I covered caffeine, I covered music, I covered lights, and right, there's another thing, exercise. So exercise, especially if it's some sort of strenuous exercise that you are into, well, I would suggest that your exercise routine should be kept probably at the early hours of the day, because the more you exercise, obviously the more adrenaline you evoke within your body, and the more adrenaline you evoke within your body, the more alert you are. And again, you don't need to be alert during the evening prior to go to sleep. You need to be relaxed. Therefore, exercises, especially if it's that kind of a strenuous strength that you're into, well, I would prefer to set some time for early in the morning, or 10, 11, or probably early in the afternoon. But the later it is, remember, the more is going to be compromising your sleep patterns. Okay, right, the last thing but not least I wanted to cover is nutrition. Right, like you probably, I used to think that obviously needing carbohydrates in the morning were vital for us to give us energy in order to tackle the day, but it turns not to be that true, as researchers show that apparently protein waking you up in the morning, and probably if you're some of those people who do strength and hypertrophy in order to increase your muscle mass, well, you need more protein in the morning because they make you feel more alert. Therefore, and also if you are some of those people who like, for example, turkey, there's something in the turkey which also increases your well-being apparently, which is called tryptophan, ideally, apparently, and it increases your dopamine levels, increases your way of being alert, and in general that kind of motivation that you need in order to engage in that physical activity. This is in Turkey, and also other types of food which I don't remember, but this is what I heard and I just wanted to mention it to you. Right, so what should you eat during the evening? Obviously, prior to go to sleep, I wouldn't say like half an hour before you go to sleep you eat. You should be eating ideally 3 to 4 hours before you go to sleep, because you need to give your time, you need to give yourself that time of digestion in order to be empty in your stomach before you go to sleep, instead of being full, because then you're going to begin the digestion when you are already in bed, and this is what you don't want to do, because you're putting calories in your body which you're not going to need at all. And not only you're going to gain weight, you're not going to sleep well. Your sleeping is going to be disrupted. You might increase your sleeping apnea, which is when you snore. So then apparently carbohydrates should be eaten during the evening. As I was saying, not during the evening before you go to sleep, but at least 3 hours before you go to sleep, because then what happens is you eat, then you start that process of digestion, and you need to give your body the time to digest and recover from the food you've eaten. Then ideally you should be going to sleep with your empty stomach, ready to then have a lovely night's sleep. Therefore, getting into that fasting state, which your body ideally needs to be in whenever you go through that sleeping process. Yeah, these are very powerful messages I've given to you guys, because I'm sure that whenever you Google or YouTube or whatever you do in order to better your health in general, then you try to find out about food, about exercise, about liquid fluid intakes and stuff like that. But the majority of us, including me, tend to neglect this important part of ourselves, which is sleep. And it's really, really vital for us, because there's many benefits that come with it. And if we miss sleep, apparently we can kind of lead our lives not in the best way. And I can also experience it in myself, that whenever I sleep, I really feel regenerated. I feel that I can tackle the world in a much better fashion. Whereas if I don't sleep, I tend to be irritable. I tend to be I wouldn't say lazy, because I try to motivate myself as much as possible on a daily basis, but whatever I do, I don't have those kind of energies and focus, and also interest in whatever I'm engaging in. If I'm exercising, for example, and I'm attempting a strenuous workout, well, I can't really give myself 100% because I don't have enough strength, I don't have enough focus. I tend to finish my reps earlier, I tend to do less sets. It takes me a while from one set to another one to get into. So all these kind of things which have a knock-on effect. You don't sleep, you then don't eat. Well, you tend to snack too much. Probably you tend to have that kind of unhealthy option. You tend to really prioritize sweets over, I would say, salads or things which are good for us. And I'm not advocating for any sort of food, but definitely whenever it comes to sugar and starchy carbohydrates and saturated fats, guys, I don't need to tell you that these are very bad for us. Okay, so these are the main topics I wanted to talk about today, and I wanted to emphasize. Bear in mind that from now on, I'm starting, not from now on, I've started this process a while ago, but for some reason I still haven't gotten to have that kind of week entirely where I can say that I've slept like 7 to 8 hours on a nightly basis. I can't say that, but I'm trying my best in order to minimize caffeine intake during the afternoon, and do all those things that I've described earlier on in the previous minutes talking to you. Okay guys, if you like this video, obviously don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time, where we're going to be talking about many